Hi, I'm Mary Gallagher. I'm one of the authors of Teach a Child to Read with children's books. And today we want to talk about practical tips or strategies for helping the reluctant writer. The most important thing that we can do is teach our children that writing is about communication. It's not about test scores and it's not about grades. It's really about communicating with their voice. So before we begin, very quickly, if you're not familiar with our book is a common sense, doable approach to teach your child to read. Mark Thogmartin and I wrote this book, and we are very happy to say that we are featured in Kathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks for Homeschool Curriculum. In fact, Kathy Duffy has said, and you can see this quote on our website at teachachildtoread.net. Kathy Duffy is quoted as saying, this book should be required reading before any parent chooses a reading curriculum, or she would love it if parents read our book before choosing a curriculum, because we teach you how to use real children's books, a library card, to promote a love for reading and a love for books, and to help your child be a balanced, strong reader. We do this by helping you combine story reading, phonics, and writing to promote reading success. We do not recommend expensive reading or phonics programs. We teach you how to teach all those things using real, authentic children's literature, which is much more motivating to children, much more engaging, and much more fun. And it's doable, and you can do it too. You can go to our website and you can read some of the testimonials of people who have used our book and our methodology, and you can see that this is doable for you. So today, let's talk about some of the common things that I hear from parents. My child hates to write. My child cannot write for more than a few sentences and then they're done. It's like pulling teeth to get them to write more. How can I help my child become a better writer? I've even had parents say to me, reading, I think I can do, but writing, I'm at a loss. I just don't know how to teach writing. And there seems to be kind of a mystery or a cloud around that. So I'm hoping that today I can break through some of that cloudiness for you and give you some real important things to understand about writing and then some real practical strategies that can help you and your child. The important point that I think is to remember is that reading is receiving a message and writing is conveying a message. So if we can communicate and teach that to our children very early on so that they don't see reading as something they have to do, but writing is something that some people just choose to do. If they can see that reading and writing go together, kind of like a hand and glove, they work together, it's both ways communicating back and forth. In order to see themselves as writers, children need to see themselves as communicators as well. So we need to emphasize that and talk about that from our earliest ages as we're reading aloud to them. Writing is a personal and unique way of expressing oneself, and so this is where children often struggle. If they're struggling to get their thoughts on paper, these are some of the things that they need. If your child is struggling, make sure that your home is a safe environment in which to write. There's no criticism of ideas or thoughts. It's really important that we get children just writing. Give them plenty of opportunities to write daily. We'll talk about that in a second, but by doing that, they can see that writing is a part of everyday life. If you get them involved in things like, hey, let's write out the directions to where we're going, help them with reading and writing recipes, letters, old-fashioned letters, lists, something as simple as writing the grocery list for you. We also want to make sure that we have short, focused writing lessons for our children. Not everything requires revising and editing. Sometimes it's just about getting our thoughts on paper. Sometimes it's just responding to something we read. Sometimes it's just we want to focus on descriptive words and describing a character. We don't have to revise and edit every piece of writing. If we do that, children will definitely avoid writing because it becomes painful for them. You might want to provide your child with some tools like a fancy writer's journal, some colored pens and pencils. There are quick write books you can get online that they can write in. If you keep word walls in your home, I talk about word walls in other places here on our videos and in our Facebook group. And maybe even a student dictionary, not one of those big thick dictionaries, but a student dictionary with common words, and they can look up common words and they can get ideas for words, and they could also add words to that dictionary so it becomes kind of personal. They definitely need a lot of support and scaffolding, so you're going to do a lot of support at first if they're new to writing and if they're struggling or they dislike writing, and then you're going to give them assistance until you can gradually pull away as they develop independence. Just like with reading, we want them to become independent writers, but we don't want to do that before they're ready. We want to give them a lot of success and confidence. If they know that their ideas and thoughts are valuable and unique, they will love to write. Children who are going to be able to write are going to need exposure to great writing, great literature, and great authors. Every last famous author on the planet will tell you, if you ask him or her what is the secret to being a good writer, they'll say two things: write a lot and read a lot, because exposing ourselves to good writing and good literature helps us understand what to shoot for and what good writing sounds like. So it's important to remember that students must be able to write fluently as well as read fluently. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that they should be able to write when they need to. It shouldn't be laborious. It shouldn't be something that they're struggling through. They should be able to take paper and pencil, go to the keyboard, and they should be able to write out an answer. They should be able to write out a paragraph. They should be able to generate ideas quickly. They should be able to create content quickly without it being a teeth pulling incident. If you're at the teeth pulling phase, then your child is not a fluent writer. So just as you would encourage your child to read with fluency, you want to encourage fluent writing. So start to talk to them about that and explain why it's important for them to be able to communicate in writing when they want to. You may want to just start with writing is as simple as talking. Just put your words on paper. You can get to all the revising and the editing later, but if your child is struggling just to get words on paper, tell them to just write that like they would talk to someone if they were explaining something to someone else. So you're going to have to give them a lot of opportunity to write freely, and don't worry about spelling, don't worry about revision, just let them write. We can work on spelling and grammar or word choice later. That's what revising and editing is all about. That's not what we do in the early stages of writing. The most important thing is to get the ideas flowing and get them practice with getting their ideas out and not stifling creativity. The biggest challenge that most writers face is overcoming their fear of spelling a word wrong. This is for young writers. They're worried about every word, and so just as I was talking about in the last slide, that's not being a fluent writer. We don't want them to worry about that, so we want to teach them that spelling comes later. We can always look up words, but we need to get our ideas down before we lose those ideas. So take the emphasis away of those things and the beginning stages of writing, and I think you'll start to see your child blossom. When it comes to proofreading, they're going to do this at the very end. This is the last stage after you've worked through some of the content. But we do want to teach them accuracy in proofreading. We do want to teach them to own their own work. So this is for our older students, but you can start to teach the younger ones this in very simple ways. They can, a couple of things that might help them as they look through it the first time, just ask them to look for complete sentences. Did they leave some sentences incomplete? Did they forget periods? Then they can look for capitalization and punctuation, and then they could look for misspelled words. And then always it's a good idea for every writer to ask someone else read their work and look for ways that it can be improved. If you get your child into the habit of asking for someone to read it, they won't feel like they're being criticized when they do need to have it proofread, or maybe when they do get it scored or read by you or go off to school. They'll be comfortable with that, that's just a process that all writers go through. These are some practical tips, so maybe get out a pen and paper and jot these down. Always write about what you know. This is for your child. So these are things you're going to want to tell your child. These are tools and strategies you're going to want to equip your child with. So encourage them to write about what they know. It's so much easier to write about what we know. So maybe you have to brainstorm with them about things that they're good at, sports that they like, hobbies, things that they've read about, collections that they have, interests. They always should try to choose a topic of interest. That way, again, they'll have more motivation to write about it. Don't worry about titles, just keep them short and catchy for the reader. We want to encourage them and teach them how to use detail. So one way to explain that is to use words that paint a picture. So there's a famous line, show me, don't tell me. If you're really a good writer, you show the reader, you don't necessarily tell them. And that's of course an art and a skill that comes along, but there's ways to work with that. And there's a way, I'll show you a strategy coming up here soon. Teach your child that being a writer means they're always looking for ideas, and whatever they're doing every day could be an idea for something to write about. So they might want to keep a notebook of ideas, or they might want to sit down sometimes and think about even just their environment. If you live on a farm or if you live in the city, there's so many things that are going on around them, things that they watch, things that they listen to, that can be ideas for writing. When they're really stuck, and actually really in the beginning of any situation of writing, it's always good to start with the brainstorm. They can start with one word and then write down all the words that come to mind when thinking of that one word. Some people call this like a word map or a word web. You can do it on a whiteboard or a chalkboard or a piece of paper with markers, make it more fun. So if they want to write about camping, they can start writing down all the things that come to mind when they think of camping, marshmallows and tents and sleeping bags. And then they can say, okay, now a story is starting to come together. A ghost story is happening. Something is happening where they can start to formulate something fun or exciting to write about. It's okay to make changes to their writing no matter where they are in the process. And also, again, just like you are as a reader, be a good role model. Show your children that you write or help them write and engage with them. Keeping a journal is a really great practice. It sometimes really helps children process things, but it can also really be great fodder for writing experiences and writing ideas. Making lists is one of the easiest ways to help your child practice writing every day. So teach them how to make lists, keeps them organized as well. And they can do things like copy the words from their favorite songs or poems or quotes, maybe keep a journal. And that gives them practice, and it also shows them how words are communicating a message and how things that they love really do consist of words. You can even use holidays as a way to come up with ideas. So maybe bake your favorite holiday treat, and then the child has to write on how to report and their experiences of what they went through to create those Christmas cookies or that birthday cake. Create lots of lists for all the things that have to be completed during holiday season, especially Christmas time and things like that. Grocery lists, gifts ideas. Get your children involved. You're making these lists anyway, so kind of help them. I used to trick my kids. I used to say, okay, well, mom is getting ready to go to the store. I need someone to write down the things that I shout out because we need a grocery list and I don't want to forget anything. So I would give someone a piece of paper and a pen, and then I would pretend that I was getting ready or, brushing my hair or putting the dishes away, and I would shout out things. We need ketchup, we need bread, and we need potatoes, and then they were responsible for making that list. Sometimes I would do it when we were in the car, so I legitimately really was busy doing something else, and so they had to help me with lists, or I would say, Mom's thinking of a bunch of things we have to do. Can someone write a list for me? So of course, keep paper and pencil in the car or in your purse or a bag. Create and send homemade cards. Boy, this doesn't happen so much anymore, but it's a great opportunity for kids to write. Think of outside the box, maybe nursing homes, military families. Describe a scene from your shopping experiences. You're spending a lot of time out there during holiday season. This is great for creative writing or for those details, sights and sounds and smells and tastes. There's a lot going on. Maybe you can find someone that they could write a cheery note to who is lonely during the season, a neighbor or relative, and then create thank yous for a charitable organization and get your child involved in those types of writing. This shows them that there's real world application for writing. More writing ideas. I promised you lots of practical strategies. The key here is just to have your kids practice all the time, just like we do with all kinds of books. We want them to practice with all kinds of writing. You could start a family notebook. I used to keep this on the kitchen table, and then the kids would write in it, just whatever they were thinking of at the time while they're eating a bowl of cereal, and then we would write back and forth to them. So sometimes you learn things you didn't know, like when we moved, my one son wrote, I hate this place, I want to move back. And so you can learn about how they're feeling about things, but they can be fun or silly or creative, or they can write notes to each other. Again, we talked about grocery lists. Make them write a wish list. What not maybe what they want for their birthday or what they want to do. Summer bucket lists are another good one. Always have them write thank you cards. I know it's easy to call or do FaceTime, but it's a great experience for them, and it's a great opportunity for them to get some writing practice in. Letters, emails to friends and family. Again, this doesn't all have to be paper pencil. Keyboarding is just as important. Our kids are practicing on that. This is kind of a fun one. If they're bugging you about something or pleading their case about something, like maybe they want to get a dog or why they should be able to stay up later or why they should be able to watch a certain movie that their friends are watching, tell them that you'll consider it if they write a persuasive paper. You will be surprised how quickly they could come up with more than 3 sentences, and you will be surprised how much effort and time they put into it. So try to engage in what's going on in your life, and you think of ways and opportunities to include that in writing. Journal prompts are great. Journaling, I think, is great. So you can download some journaling prompts and encourage your children, maybe print some of those prompts in the inside of the journal, tape them in there so they have a prompt for every day. For those who have trouble getting started, prompts are really great. Now, I talked about creating more detailed sentences, and so for our younger children, sometimes this is really hard, or also for our reluctant writers. I used to teach first grade, and I had kind of a joke that there were just, 3 adjectives that first graders used all the time. If I would say, how did the boy feel? They would either say he was sad, or he was mad, or he was glad. That was very hard for them to come up with additional ideas. So we try to engage them to build their vocabulary, but also when they're writing, we want to show them how they can add to their writing sentences and they can make their sentences more descriptive and more entertaining. So instead of saying the spider crawls, here's an activity that you can do. You can turn it into a singing activity to the tune of The Farmer in the Dell. But you can use these different colors to have your child so they know that they need 2 adjectives because that's green, 1 noun, that's red, and 1 verb, that's blue, but then they need a prepositional phrase to make the sentence even better or stronger, and that's that pink color. So instead of just the spider crawls, they can start building that. The ugly spider crawls, the ugly hairy spider crawls, the ugly hairy spider crawls on my arm. And so they can see how they're building a sentence. If you want to make it fun, you can sing that to the farmer in the dell. I will refrain from singing for you. When it comes to proofreading, we definitely want to teach that at a young age. But as the children get older, that's definitely going to be something that they own. Unfortunately, it's not the best part of writing, but it is a part of writing. That's the proofreading, that's our editing stage. That's something all good writers have to do, and they can get help with it. But it can be um, it can be a struggle because when we've put our words on paper, we often miss our own mistakes. And so giving them some of these strategies might help. So whatever these strategies work, use them. If they don't work, don't use them. You don't have to use them. Sometimes it helps to read your work out loud so you can hear if you actually wrote the word you meant to, or if there's a word there that is not there that you think is there, or if you put a word in twice, is. We don't always catch that when we're reading it because our brain fixes it for us, but when we force ourselves to read it out loud and even touch each word with your finger, you'll catch some of those things. If they normally have trouble with punctuation or spelling, those might be the things that they want to check first so they know that they've gotten those out of the way. It might help to start backwards at the end and work to the beginning. That way they're not reading it, but they're just concentrating on the proofreading and the letters and the words. Using a ruler might help them work through the words without skipping. For younger children, you can use this 5-finger proofreading method. So you're going to stick out your thumb and then take each finger and point it to the thumb and touch it so as it reports its job. So each finger has a job. The index finger is looking for complete sentences, done with that. The middle finger's looking for punctuation, ring finger capitalization, and pinky finger spelling. So they know there's 4 things that they need to look for throughout their paper. It really does help if they just do one at a time. And then as they go through, they're only looking for that one thing. They're looking for errors in spelling or capitalization as they go. You can use this with older students, so a writing checklist as a reflection. So again, they're owning their own writing and they're thinking of themselves as writers. So you want to go through, these are more of the kind of content and development of the writing. And so, they don't have to do all these things every time, but they might want to check some of these things off and say, you know what, I feel like I really did this well. I really added some important details. I'm proud of this. And then you could read that through after they complete their writing checklist and you can give them feedback. Hey, you know what? You really did use words that helped me see the meaning. You really did a great job with the descriptive. That brings me to another point. When you're giving feedback, try to just pick one area that you think could need improvement. Don't pick all the areas of improvement because that could be discouraging. So of course, tell them what they did well and then tell them one area. Here's an area I think that you can improve on. I think you could take some more time to write longer sentences. Some of these sentences are short. You're in 4th grade now. You're in 3rd grade now. I think you could write these longer sentences. So something like that. That way they're only getting feedback on one area. This is for you as the parent or teacher, where you could have a rubric that you decide is what you're going to look for. So instead of giving letter grades or marking up a paper, a rubric is really helpful. There's websites that you can go to, and I'll include one in here, where you could just create your own rubric if you wanted to. But this helps you see if their writing is progressing and growing as a writer. So I've had this experience as a teacher, and I'm sure you've had as a parent, when you ask your children to write and they say, "Write what?" and you say, "Just write." And it becomes kind of a standoff. And so this could be a fun poem that you could read together. Just write. What to write? I asked my teacher. That's how I described my plight. She waved her arms about her. She fixed me in her sight. Right of the soaring gymnastic hawk slicing through the air. A flight, she said, just right. Of cheese, tomato, and lettuce, grilled, tasty, juicy, hot, delicious. A bite, she said, just right. Of ancient armor, swords at ready, fearsome combat, courage, bravery. A knight, she said, just right. Of the slithering, silky, eerie, icy touch of a ghost, graveyards, full moon, a fright, she said, just right. And then an idea landed, softly like a kite. I ran to my desk, grabbed my pencil. I've got it. This is it. Just right. So give your children some suggestions and ideas and help them to see that the world is their oyster. They can write about anything that they want. Here are some of those online resources. There are interactive writing prompts at thewritingfix.com. When you go in there, if you go over to the left, you'll see the writing prompts, and then you can click in there. So it gets very specific, grade level, and what you might be looking for. So that's all different grade ranges there. Writing Bugs is another website for writing prompts. And then if you did want to create your own rubrics, rubistarforteachers.org has that functionality for you to do. I hope that this was helpful. Always, I know that it's important to look for practical strategies, but always keep in mind the important pieces of teaching your child children that writing is about communicating and helping them to see themselves as writers. If you want to connect with us further, I'd love to have you join our free Facebook group where I do lots of things like this in Facebook Lives and interact with our members of our group. We do have a Facebook page. I'll post blog posts and additional resources there for you. And we are now on Instagram at Teach a Child to Read. Make sure you get the underscores in there. I do have a Pinterest board, and it is on my my Pinterest website at Teach a Child to Read. There is a blog on our website, teachachildtoread.net. You can purchase the book on our website. Is there a reason you haven't purchased the book? I'd like to know what it is. If you have questions you need answered before purchasing, please let us know. You can contact us. Our email is info@teachachildtoread.net. If you haven't and you are not sure about the book, downloading our free chapter and getting hooked in with our newsletter will give you lots of information to help you make a decision that you might need. Thanks, everybody. I hope that you are encouraged to and not intimidated and have some resources now to work with your reluctant writer.